I'm good. How you doing?
Busy.
Are you?
Yeah, really busy. All good busy, but busy.
Yeah. Well, hey, the the when the mother is called, the mother has to respond, right?
I feel like I'm the mother, the auntie, the sister, the teacher. I'm a lot right now. So it's
Yeah.
this lesson is definitely teaching me about respecting boundaries.
Mm, totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
because if you're run down, you running down affects a lot of people. And
Yes.
yeah, well that's I mean, it's really good to say no sometimes, right? And really listen to that. Because sometimes the no can be a great lesson for the receiver, right? To
Yes.
be to
Yes.
to figure out the power within to deal with certain things. But
Well, on that note, thank you for saying yes to me.
I'm just really grateful to be reconnected with you, at
Yeah.
least in this way. And yeah, the last time I saw you, I was at your home and we were walking in the desert and you were showing some walking a path of seeing some of the medicinal plants right outside the door, and we did some ceremony, we talked around fire. It was fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
come on, in the Arizona sky.
Right.
So yeah, Felicia, thank you. I'm just so I I've really just, again, you made an impact on me, and I just want to honor that, and honor the space that you hold, especially I think kind of now more than ever, right? And the feminine earth mother energy and so many other things that you hold, um, and really is a representation of aspects of all of us, right?
Mhm.
So I'm just really grateful, and I can't wait for people to dive into and understand who you are, what you're doing. The amazing book, the Earth Medicines book, Ancestral Wisdom, Healing Recipes, Wellness Rituals from the Curandera, so herself. So thank you for joining me here, and having a bit of a deep dive on your perspectives and what you're up to. But why don't you kind of unpack just a little bit, because I'll do a good intro as well,
Okay.
but from your mouth, right? uh, the word, even curandera, what does that mean? The What do you believe you're representing here? Not to mention all the medicinal plants and the recipes and the ways, and we're going to get into that. I want to get into that DIY, do it yourself medicinal kind of expose that you can provide. But yeah, talk to me a little bit about your roots, and pun intended, and then we can go from there.
Well, before I begin, in keeping with tradition of a curandera, I would first like to acknowledge my ancestors, because that is the foundation of what I do. So I am Chicana and Tewa. I live here in Arizona. However, all of my family is from northern New Mexico. I come from a lineage of curanderas on my maternal side and on my paternal side. So on both sides, I had women who were known in their community as curanderas. And for your listeners that might not know what that word means, it's just a word that means a traditional healer, and specifically a woman traditional healer. Some people might relate it to like a medicine woman, or holistic wellness coach nowadays. It's taken on different meanings, but I hold true to the lineage that I'm from and what I was taught by my teachers, which is really keeping the Mexican traditional healing ways as a
Yeah,
living tradition. Like I'm trying to think, yeah, so to me, this is very much so a living tradition,
yeah,
evolving and changing.
yeah. If anything, we have to, right? And we have to
Mhm.
adapt to that kind of thing. But at the same time, this grounded earth medicine aspects of, if we literally are not going to bring our past with us in the positive way, then we're lost, right? And so I love that those so many different aspects of you that kind of stand out. And that is like the herbalist, that beautiful intersection between this alchemy between the plant world and us. And if you don't see that this is that we are nature and nature is us, then everyone I think here is sucked on a lollipop that is, or a cough drop that has peppermint in it or something. That's medicine. That's earth medicine. So we I think we lose track of that stuff. So the food activism, this kind of bring us back, but also bring us forward in terms of what are plants that you not only support and help with and utilize. What can we, because I think we definitely are going to this place where we have to be sovereign again. We like, look at the world, man. Like if you put your power out and give it outside of yourself, that can be taken away at any moment. And that's where I love that kind of activism part of you, kind of like, let's put power back in our hands of our traditional ways and foods and medicinal plants and things like that. So
right. Well, my focus with food sovereignty began actually decades ago, but it was primarily focused on my own community, whose power was taken away. And for me, like being able to have sovereignty over our own food and traditions, it's part of our DNA, it's our culture. Yeah. And so although I want food sovereignty for everyone, I've always, that's how I started with this activism, was within my own community.
Well, that's how it has to start, right? You have to be you have to be the activist for your own self and health.
Yes.
Right. And then isn't that interesting though, when you realize, and you've been around a lot of people and a lot of people have come to you, and then when they start feeling better, they have more ability to share and give from there. And that's how true community is built. And so I love that. And I think people lose track of that. Like, oh my God, I'm in guilt and I need to help other people. But you really do have to fortify your own temple first, right? And so I love that, because you're grounded in that way. I mean, you use that on
it's my foundation.
Yeah. And so, I have some questions to ask, but I kind of want to jump into
Jump in, Darin.
What?
Jump in.
What are some of your what are some of your go-tos right now? Like when you talk to me about your morning kind of balanced rituals that you are doing to again, we're in this world, and we all, people use morning rituals all the time. Everyone wants to know what everyone's doing and all that stuff. But this stuff is really powerful, and it can be set us on a course for health, balance instead of reactivity, right? Always. So how do you start your day? I'm curious.
Well, first I want to say that in the practice of curanderismo, which is my lifestyle practice, it truly is a lifestyle. I'm not just thinking today, I'm going to be a curandera from 9 a.m. until 10, and then I change over. It impacts every part of my day. And so it's a lot about deconstructing everything down to its bare bones. And so that's kind of the premise of the book, was based on the 4 elements. And so what I mean by that is I really acknowledge that since I was small, I need to be outside in the sun at some point of my day. I also live in the desert, so it's very easy for me to get sun. I feel, empty or something feels off if I'm not outside, even if it's for 1 minute, if that's all I have for the day. But, generally it's more than a minute. So my morning or my days always include sun, but let me backtrack. When I wake up, the first thing I do is I have a glass of water. I have it with lemon. That's just what I like. I drink that as I'm kind of just rising. I have my ancestor altar nearby. So I always take a moment to acknowledge my ancestors, and depending what time, I have, I might sit down, and that's when I do meditation. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm doing any type of meditation or a guided one. It's just really sitting there and kind of just being quiet and still for a moment. And then I go about my day. If my day allows, I'll go out for a walk. I recently lost my dog of many years, and that was kind of my morning routine, actually, like to just go and walk him, 3 times a day. And now I do feel that I recognize more greatly how much he was just part of my daily morning practice. And so I've had to get myself out there on that morning walk, because I do recognize it. It is so important that I continue that part of my practice. And then it's just like moving into my day. And I really love, I don't know where I came up with this, but everyone always talks about like getting a coffee break, or, I need a computer break, or they'll say, even a smoke break. That's not something I do, but you know what I mean? That in the workplace, like people say, oh, I need to go get a coffee or something. And I, with my online community, we started something called the element break. And what I do is I have people choose one of the 4 elements, and that's what they do for their, say, 10 or 15-minute break if they're on a computer all day. And depending what's going on for me, then I might say, okay, I'm going to go and get my 10 minutes of sunshine, or I might really focus on hydration in that moment. Or, be misting myself with water. I love turning on the humidifier here because I'm in the desert. Like, so I'll really focus on one of those elements. For air, I absolutely love hearing the wind chimes, or just hearing something. It kind of resets my day. So I guess that's what I'm bringing back, is it doesn't cost anything really. It's just deconstructing what holistic wellness is. And that's what curanderismo is.
Yeah, I love that, because it's such a great way mindfully to get us back into this present, because that monkey mind wants to kind of keep going. But then, like, I love the idea of the wind chimes in the background, and that element of like, or lighting a candle for fire, or the mist of the water. But it's that intentional mindfulness that brings us to, like, because we literally are that, right? We're all of those elements. And I love that practice. One thing I want to go back to, just because it's powerful for me, when you say, you have your ancestors close by, and we were just in season 2 filming Down to Earth, and the Aboriginals bring that in a big way, right? So a lot of ceremonies with them, and like, as soon as we were there, I was like, shit, I feel like it's really strong, right? And it's amazing. And it brings me to feeling and perceiving all of what's going on around me and the ancestors. So for you, unpack that a little bit, because I think in this culture, whatever the hell this culture is these days, I mean, secrets of mine is I do like to communicate, right, to the invisibles and to the spirits and the ancestors. So I want to hear from you, like, what does that mean to you, and what is that about for you?
Right. So when I wake up, I think you had said, the ancestors are there or something. My ancestor altar is there, but
Right.
I feel that my ancestors are all around me at all times. And for special moments, I invoke them for guidance and support. And just as an example, so since we've had to do so much work virtually, it's really difficult to connect sometimes with people, and not everyone even turns their camera on. And I'm such an energy reader. Like, it's just, I had to think of how could I even connect with people virtually. And so, before I got on the call with you, like, I just took a moment to ask my ancestors that are spiritually well to be there with me a lot, for this interview, for this call. And I don't care if anyone else believes in this. It helps me. And what I envision is all of them around me, the ones that I knew and the ones that I don't know, that are resonating at their highest frequencies, to go have a conversation with yours. And so probably, like, I don't know, 12:45, so we're recording this at 1. Like, I don't know if you felt anything, but I was sending them over to meet yours. And so that we could have like this really great conversation for the highest good for your listeners, for my people. And it's like I feel like they're able to have like this cosmic conversation, and that's what unfolds. And it's always benefited me when working with people in person. So I figured, why not do this virtually? And so I don't know if you felt anything, and don't feel like you have to say you did, but it's a tool that I use because I truly believe and have been taught that they are everywhere.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny because I was on a call with an attorney and another business partner of mine, and just before this, and I actually didn't want to, like, I had to take the call and I was hoping it would come in after. So I'm sitting there and there was like plenty of time yet. There was like 5 minutes left. And all of a sudden I was like, I actually got to go. Like, I didn't want to wait until 59, like 1 minute before, and then just jump to you. I actually felt like I literally just cut him off and said, hey, I got to go.
Hey, the
And
ancestors are calling. I got to go.
Yeah, I got to go. I got to go. And listen, I think that, I mean, I'll be honest with you too. Like, it's such a powerful part of me that I've never shared it. I've never really talked about it. But, my father passed away 21 years ago. He's around all the time. Like, I've laughed with him, when the moments that happen, and I'm like, God, I wish he was here physically. And then he like taps me on my proverbial shoulder and I start laughing. And so it's like that and so much more. I feel like I've gathered troops around me from all of the travels and the connections and the things. And it's such a blessing. But it's so easy for us, right, to just blow off that stuff, that feeling. Because I bet you everyone listening has lost a very special person in their life. And I guarantee you, 99.99999% of the people are feeling them at some point, right? And the hair stands up on the back of your head. Something happens. Like, it happens too much to discount. Right.
I think I agree with you. And I would disagree and say it's 100% people.
Yeah.
But I feel like what we as an American culture specifically, and I'm not including the indigenous people of what is now America, but like, we've been desensitized, like we've been misled. I think for me and my culture, like, we really do honor these ancestors so much so that for ceremony, we set out a plate of food for them, so that they can nourish the essence of the food. So it's like, it's ingrained in what I do. And it would be strange if I didn't include them in all of the beautiful things that are unfolding for me now, including meeting you. Perhaps those were our ancestors, mine or yours, or them working together, getting us, putting us in the same space when we met last year.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like all of those things are beyond the mind, right? The mind is kind of been misguided to lead our life as opposed to the heart. And I go through my own process with that all the time. I'm a guy, I've got to do stuff, I'm trying to figure it out. But in fact, the super secret sauce and power, it always has been, the success and the joy in my life has always been when I listened.
Yeah.
And it wasn't being guided. I guarantee you, if I look through my life, all of the destruction or businesses blowing up or people not working out is all because I'm trying to force something.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, there's definitely a surrender to some degree where you just have to know, like, with absolute clarity and faith that your ancestors, at least for me, I feel that coming, as a brown person, I'm practicing things now that, although they're part of my culture, just, until 1978, we weren't allowed to practice many of the things that we do. We had to in secret. And so I feel like even those ancestors arrive in times to remind me or to guide me to say, like, hey, now's your time. Like, we really need people that are, motivating and inspiring others to go back to these traditional ways.
Damn right, man.
Yeah, 1978 was not a long time ago.
God, I was
Yeah.
8 years old. It was in my lifetime.
Yeah,
That's
same.
freaking scary.
Yeah, I would have been 7.
That's petrifying. Well, at the same time, you see things going on today that is so horrifying that people are doing to people. And no longer can you say it's just unconscious. There's like conscious choice being made. And it's just like, it's insane. And so it kind of brings me into this question that kind of popped in my head before. What is the most important thing you think for people to be doing right now in this day and age, right now, from your perspective, for their own kind of, however you want to define it, for their own independence, their own sovereignty, their own well-being? What do you think the most important thing is?
Wow, that's a difficult one because I could name many.
Name away.
Yeah, so, well, I think just from working with as many people as I have, I really feel one of my missions here is to remind people that we are our own healers.
Right.
And I think that a lot of people don't even believe that of themselves, or that it's even possible. And so it's like taking back that kitchen healer. I mean, that's such a big part of my platform, and to really just feel it, like, everybody, no matter where you're from, we all come from beautiful traditions and healing ways, but somehow, like, things were severed for so many people. So it's like, what I really feel that is, if people can just step back for a moment and look what we've already addressed, the ancestors, like, go back and see, what healing modalities were your ancestors practicing. Like, you don't have to adopt other people's, or, like, just go back a few generations, see about their gardening ways, see about their home remedies, see about all of these things. And all of those are so empowering. So it's perhaps it all just goes back to just empowering, to turn your light back on.
That's a perfect way to say it, because I think innately within all of us, it is that sovereignty, and that it is because maybe at some point we gave away, right? And this kind of, I talk about like fatal conveniences all the time, right? It's so easy for us to kind of, I'm in this world and I just kind of, it's easy for me to act out. It's to not own my own emotions. Easy to get angry. It's easy to just, buy this deodorant. It's easy to spray this perfume on. It's easy to just buy stuff, do it, not think about it, right? And I don't think that's a good plan anymore, right? Because there's consequences to all of that stuff. And I think there's no person, from what you just said, there's no person that can understand that empowerment feels good. having the sovereignty yourself, so that if things happen, you have yourself under control, your family, your community. You've got the herbs growing in the background, in the backyard. You get the plants in the ground. You've got the emulsifiers. You have the oils. You have the ancestors. You have it all. And I think everyone can understand going back and
Right.
going
I know.
back to.
I don't want people to feel like they all have to become, living off the grid homesteaders. Like, you can take baby steps and just like start, in your own kitchen with what is it that I can at least begin with, because it can seem overwhelming. I've seen people feel like, they are overwhelmed. Like, how do I become sovereign? And it's like just one little baby step at a time. And then all of a sudden you start having different perspectives in all forms.
Totally. And it's that thought, that first, asking that question, and the willingness to go, hey, what would it take for me to be sovereign? Right. And all of a sudden there are people listening to this podcast going, didn't see that coming. And now all of a sudden they're being gifted with this idea that, like, it literally is steps, right? It literally is, it feels good, right? It feels good to go.
It's liberating.
Totally. Exactly. What are some of your go-to, because I know you have incredible health, skin remedies. I want to dive into. I want to have you give a couple of these DIYs to people, deodorants, and like this stuff that people can do, because when you realize the horrible, unbelievable leads and endocrine disruptors and chemicals that are in most of this stuff, you kind of want to like, nah, I don't really want to put that in my body anymore now that I know it. So what are some of your go-tos?
Well, because I live in the desert, hydration is so important. I mean, water and hydration, all of those things, those are important no matter where you live. But I feel like in our summer, when it's 120 degrees, like, you really feel it. So I've always been an advocate for, body care products that were nourishing to the skin, moisturizing, hydrating, but also protective, because I'm in the desert. I've never been afraid of the sun. I've never been a sunscreen person. My first, I guess, act of defense against the sun has always just been like to stand in the shade or to wear a hat, because that's, what works for me. I'll be 51 this year, and I feel like it's worked out for me. So I think the oiling of the skin, it's something that I wish more people would do no matter where you live, because I think that we as a culture tend to not want dry skin. So everyone's like slathering on lotions and things like that. But I prefer and have always made my own body oils since, I guess, the mid 90s is when I went to massage school. And I realized early then, like, one, it was less expensive for me to make my own blends, and I knew everything that was in them. I could tailor them to my clients. But that's one thing. I think that's so easy. Like, anyone could do it as long as you have olive oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, whatever type of oil you use. I primarily use avocado and jojoba oil, because jojoba is an ancestral oil for me, and it's all over our Sonoran desert. I already mentioned the humidifier, and that's something that a lot of people might not think about, but it's like a cool mist, something I'm about, what can I do to counterbalance, like if we have our air conditioning on, here in our desert, opening windows, getting fresh air, all of those things. Most of what I recommend to people or suggest really don't cost much. I was taught long ago by one of my elders and plant teachers that the American way is to know about every imaginable plant, and you feel overwhelmed as a consumer, like you need to buy every single plant, for an apothecary. But I was taught the opposite, that you should really know 5 plants and to know them well, so know how to steam them, know how to create an oil with them, know how to perhaps make a tea, to ingest them, cook with them. And I would say if that was a takeaway, that would be definitely one I would have for people that hear this.
That's great. I mean, I know you work with more than 5. What are some of your, what
My
are some of your
go-tos.
top 5s that you're
Yeah.
working with right now?
Because I live in the desert and I have access to it, I do work with, it goes by many names, but the name that I'm familiar with in English is creosote. Some people call it chaparral. I use that during any kind of cold or flu season type, thing going around. I use it for foot washes and things like that, especially like if I have a cut, if I'm outside and cut my foot. But I use it for so many different ways. It's extremely potent. And so it's something that you want to use, with great attention to. But then I don't always work with just indigenous plants. I also work with one of my favorites, which is rosemary. And rosemary was brought with the Spanish colonists, but our grandmothers really recognized its medicinal properties. So it's like one of my absolute favorite plants that I use in my culinary and to make as an infusion for a tea. It's so antiviral. I adore the scent. And so I'll use it for different things, like to air out a room, maybe with the essential oils. But then spiritually speaking, in my curandera practice, like we also will use rosemary to do what we call limpias, which are like for lack of a better description, like a smudging, but with fresh plant material. And so we'll use that to brush the body with, and rosemary is definitely one that we use often because it grows so well here.
I think you gave me some of that stuff. I think I still.
I think I gave you the shagoi, the creosote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's the thing, like, you get some olive oil or avocado oil and you get some fresh herbs or dried herbs, and you can literally, put them in the olive oil and let them seep there, and
Yeah.
you're getting medicinal plant
Yeah.
extraction, and it can be that simple, right? So it doesn't have to be,
Yes, it's so easy. And again, you're harnessing the energy of the sun, and there's your energy is going into that remedy as well.
Yeah, it's powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, if you just look at, I always love this because it's like the photons of the sun hitting the leaves and the leaves interacting with the soil and creating these amazing compounds.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible thing. And there's so many different phases and phase changes that we can utilize that we're not utilizing. And so we have to kind of look outside. And again, looking back though, because of the use, we get so stuck in this kind of way as a linear use to things.
Right.
And this is, I love that idea. I like if maybe we can create a little movement here, people picking 5 of their favorite plants, and then just make a little challenge of people saying, hey, I found this use for it or that use for it. And that would be really fun and empowering thing to do for people to just go, hey, this week try to use your avocado oil and use your favorite plant to infuse or whatever. It could be fun to get people to do that. What are you the most, you're helping so many people. Your book, by the way, your book is so stunning. It's so beautiful, which is great because it's like, it's just, it's so much great, solid information that people can use today, right? But also it's just so enjoyable. And it's amazing when you see that kind of effort going into a book. It just brings this whole other element to it. It's like it's an experience rather than just words, right? And so I just want to say that whatever you did to put that together, it's really stunning.
Thank you.
You're doing so many things, and what's the most exciting thing right now that you are doing specifically or working on?
Oh, I would say decolonizing wellness.
Please tell me more. I can't wait to hear this.
So, decolonizing wellness. I speak on various panels and give presentations, and as I have for many years, but I think virtually, I feel like now I'm doing it more so even since the release of the book. With so much out there about holistic wellness, what I'm seeing in the wellness space is a lot of cultural misappropriation. I know there's a lot of talk about cultural appropriation, but even in my own practice, what I talk about is I acknowledge all earth medicines from around the world. And so it's about using them with respect, and even breaking down curanderismo is absorbed, it was absorbing all of these beautiful cultures because of colonization. So, medicine ways from the West Africans, medicine ways from the Spaniards and the Portuguese, blended with the indigenous Mexican. It's like, in some ways, we appropriated each other's medicine ways to come up with our own solid practice of curanderismo. What I'm seeing in current times is that people are taking other traditional medicine ways, and misappropriating them, and what I call Columbicizing them as their own. And so I do speak a lot on this, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. And that has really just taken a big part of my platform now, is helping people understand that indigenous living is holistic living,
Yeah. What's some examples of that you see are not correct and that need to be shifted?
Well, decolonizing wellness, I don't solely speak on just my own culture, but I'll bring in examples. And so, for instance, let's just use yoga because that's a platform that many people, or a practice that many people are familiar with, I'm sure. I think what has happened with yoga is that it's lost in many circles and communities its absolute core and foundation. And now we see yoga, we'll see like, I know I've seen this before, but kind of like wine and yoga like night, or, like yoga with, it's become so commercialized in the sense that it's lost its foundation for the people that are new to it, and I want people to understand, like, these old traditional ways from around the world, there's a reason why they've been around for so long. And once they start becoming commodified, that's when I see that their soul is almost lost. And so it's the decolonizing wellness is about saying, hey, like, first, let's acknowledge that traditional people, medicine ways from around the world, like, we've been implementing these things for a very long time. We don't need certain medicines. Like in my own practice, we have activism happening right now, with, let's say, amaranth. There's Monsanto wants to get like rights to certain seeds so that they have access to our medicine ways, but then it's like we somehow start even losing our medicine ways because they're being sold in a fashion that's not to benefit the community it even came from.
Right. Yeah.
It's very complex. I mean, that to me is like a whole podcast in itself.
Yeah, and we should talk about it at some point. But the going back to that, it's a good example. Yoga is a great example. I'm no yoga expert, but I have practiced it quite a bit. But my first practice was Kundalini, like straight up breathing, meditation, and And then I was like, oh, and I've been to India. I've studied it traditionally, not formally studied, but, and you're like, oh, essentially the small definition of it, it's a preparation of the body to open itself up to meditate and to allow consciousness to flow and all that stuff. And I bet you, like, to your point, I bet you if you talk to anyone currently practicing a consistent yoga practice, they're doing it for what? There's nothing wrong with the body. I mean, the body needs to move, and these are great moves and all that stuff. However, do those people really know what it's about? And then they do shavasana at the end for 30 seconds or a minute, and it's like, okay, well, it just flipped. And again, we're not here to demonize yoga. You're going to get benefits from just showing up with yoga and wine, but it's the point, I think, is what you're making, and that is, well, where's the soul of it? Right. And it's the separate thing that's over there, when in fact the genesis of it was really rooted in the truth of who and what we are and how we can be better humans. And I think that's, I mean, listen, that's, if there's anything, I know I'm excited about the last two, I'm not excited about what happened in the last 2 years, but I am excited. Actually am excited about what happened the last 2 years from many different points of view. You see where systems fail us as societies. We prop systems up, we prop people up, we do all this stuff. And then you go, oh, I've put power onto them and they let me down. And so back to our point, little things we can do to bring back our power, to empower ourselves, and realizing that, oh, I let my power go to someone else or something else. That to me is exciting. And I think there's a lot of people waking up to that fact of like, oh, let's do this differently, man.
Differently and as a collective is
totally
as a collective.
100%. Yeah, I mean, some people don't want to change, and that's okay. But there's a lot of people that go, let's do this different. And what are you excited about? I mean, it doesn't have to be from the last 2 years, but just as you're kind of moving in this way and kind of being this representation and this beacon of getting out from your angle, from your perspective, what we can put attention on. What are you excited now from, like, what you've seen and where you think we could go?
Well, I got my book deal in 2019. And so I was kind of deep in writing right when the pandemonium happened. And so it was like, as I was writing it, I couldn't help but to think what was going to be on the other side, because this work that I'm doing, I mean, there's a reason why I wanted to write the book, right? I didn't write the book because of the pandemonium. I wrote the book because I already got the book deal, but then the pandemonium happened. And so it was like really validating for me that this was an important piece of my purpose, I guess, here on this world. And so it just really, I was watching everything around me unfold. And, I would have people emailing me or messaging me, for suggestions on different things. And, at the time I still had my 100-foot long garden row at the community garden. And, then everything got shut down, everything was happening. And I was really feeling that what we were experiencing, as horrible as it was for so many, I also saw that for me, and again, this is not to diminish anyone that went through, hard times, that this was divine timing for me, because I acknowledged that, wow, so many of the elders, in my community were saying, we need this information out just for people to feel their power, to call their power back in. And so by the time the book, was done and we were able to take photos, and it was like when it was born, back in November, I felt like if this book had come out even 2 years ago, it wouldn't have the same impact. And I'm watching more than any time I think I've ever had. Like, I'm watching people reassess, recalibrate, reclaim, all of it, remember, re-indigenize all of this. And so I'm thinking, okay, like this is why I'm so busy right now. So
Yeah.
because I think that's exactly what the book is doing for people.
Yeah, I love that. And it is, I mean, I think of that and listening to that, it's like perfect timing actually, as you were started in on it. And then you had this, I love that pandemonium occur, and it also informed you as you're writing this thing. And it's all these elements that we're talking about and more, right? The
Yes.
empower, I love that, remembering and the empowering and just gathering our insights, our knowledge, and it shook us all, right? It shook us all
Yeah.
to the core. And to be able to have that as a society, of course, we don't want harm to people. We don't want people to die, all of those things. But it did shake us all. And so what an opportunity to spin and look and apply different information to your life. And I think that's what's so great about the knowledge that you're giving in this book, the ways to empower, the small steps you can take to gain back a whole bunch. You see that in people when they take steps towards what they know to be true for them. It is so, people, like, their eyes change, their spirit comes out, and it's like, wow. And if people can gain that more and more and more, and by tapping into your book, clearly the energy of that book is all in this thing.
Right. I feel that when you feel empowered, like you too are a teacher because you're leading by example. And so again, it's not about I don't want to judge anyone. We all come from circumstances that we felt like we were not dealt, a great deck or a great hand, and, I have struggled with many things in my youth, and as our people have as a culture. But it was like, there's so much satisfaction I have from feeling like I can at least be in charge of me. And it's like I see other people around me, inspired. And to me, that's what I hope people feel from the book. Like they too are a teacher and an educator and a leader.
Totally. That's, I love that you said that, because that is when you kind of choose yourself. It's not about, I need to be a leader. No, it's, you
Right.
need to choose yourself. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you take on so many of that. It's a healer, herbalist, a curandera, indigenous, earth mother, on and on this list. What's something that people don't know about you?
About me. I feel like I've been interviewed so many times in the past 20 years. I feel like everything's kind of out there. I don't know. You'd have to ask some questions.
Right. Well, so I mean, maybe this isn't the same question, but what popped in my head was, there was a point, there had to be a point in your life, right, where you were probably getting some information, and you made a decision, and your decision was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to step into this thing where I may not know where it's going to go. I may not know what it looks like, but I know I need to do it. When was that, and how did that happen?
Well, that I can definitely pinpoint back. There were a few of them in my life, but one of them I don't actually write about in the book, but I have spoken on before, is at one point in my life, for many years, I actually owned a restaurant. And I remember being interviewed from a local paper or something, and they were asking me, like, where did I go to culinary school? You know, where was I classically trained and all of these things. And I remember just saying, like, I didn't go to culinary school. Like, I was taught by mostly just women who worked in kitchens and apprenticing people, and, you know, and she said, oh, so you went the non-traditional way, like, you know, congratulations. And I remember, like, thinking at that moment, actually, no, I went the traditional way.
Right.
And so I really recall where I was when we were doing the interview. And in that moment, it was so powerful for me, because I recognized that that was part of me beginning my decolonization activism, as it revolved around food. Because me not going to culinary school, I was almost seen as uneducated or less than the male chefs that were also restaurant owners and whatnot. Yet I had a very busy space, and it was very well known in the city, and yet my way was like considered less than. So I really started diving deep into the activism. And so for me, that's when everything about decolonizing food and food sovereignty came into my career path, like 100%.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really powerful moment, because it's clashing directly into the perceived idea that, hey, you got to go this route. If you go this route, if you have this behind your name, then therefore you're at this kind of level or status level. But that's just literally a story that's been made up, right? And we've just kind of bought into it. And you were like, no way. Like, it's so funny, because I've never thought about that. Of course, your way is the traditional way.
Right.
It's like,
but it was somehow the narrative was flipped. And that's what I was saying, is for me as an Indigenous person, I felt that, well, of course, that was the viewpoint. The viewpoint was that it was backwards, you know, somehow, because I don't know, learning from grandmothers, to me, that's about as traditional as you can get. So.
Yeah, passed on and on and on and on. I mean, I'd show up at that restaurant infinitely more than I would show up at let's call it now the non-traditional way, of
classically trained chef restaurant. And, you know, part of the talks I would give after that, my little light bulb moment was that, you know, in culinary school, they do speak about the mother sauces. I don't know if you've heard of that term, but you know, the mother sauces, anyone listening that has gone through culinary school or likes to learn about culinary, it's like everything is rooted in French ways. You know, you have the different way you dice and chop things, and the base sauces for everything. They're called mother sauces. But I was like, those aren't my mother's. Those sauces are not the sauces that I grew up with and am familiar with. And so it's really taking a look at just how you can honestly, like, go back and re-indigenize everything in your life. And that, I guess, is how I live my day, going back to the absolute first question that you asked.
Wow, that was a great all the way
circle
around. Yeah, but again, it's got the roots in common sense for all of us. Like, listen, this is not this is just, I think about this too, because I have to deal with, like, I quote unquote deal with, but you know, you get in these environmental circles, you get in these climate change conversations, you get into these, I have to do talks and you have to do stuff. And it's like, I also don't agree some of the time, many of the times, as to the angles or the points of view people are having. For me, I'm like, politicizing everything is a really bad idea, right?
Mhm.
When I just go, it's common freaking sense. Let's just take a breath. Do you want to know how to make incredible skincare routine that's gonna been used for thousands of years to help, and you can do it yourself, and there's no weird ass chemicals that are causing cancer down the road? Is that something you're interested in? Who is gonna say no, I'm not? Like, especially when it's easy and it's applicable and you're empowered doing it, and you can teach your daughter and your children. Like, come on. Like, that's where I go with this stuff. It's like I just kind of cut through the BS around all this stuff, and like, it's common sense for us. And
Right.
we in our modern day world are so off in terms of the kind of clothes we're wearing and personal care products we're putting on our skin and the EMFs that we're just thinking is nothing. Like, it's just crazy what we're doing. If we don't do what it is that you're suggesting and stop and going backwards, not even back, but back to the knowledge to pull it forward, for God's sakes, we have divorced ourselves so much that we are living in this horrible consequence. And
Right.
that's why I think now more than ever, what you're representing and what you are doing is so important. I want everyone to check out this book from so many angles. But before we go, we've got a lot of listeners here that love to take responsibility. Smart people. They want to take responsibility. They may are thinking, going, I want to take a step forward. What are some little, maybe personal care, little things that you could describe or give people as a little nugget today?
So because I know everyone always comments on my radiant, glowing skin.
Which, by the way, I can attest. I
Yeah,
have seen you in person, and
I'm
you
a,
are
I,
stunning.
it's about feeling, allowing your skin to feel good. And I do believe that healing, is not just on what you put on your skin, but it's coming from the inside out. And so one of the recipes from my book that I absolutely love and I partake in as often as possible, at least one time a day, is and I want to say too about the book is not a how-to book. It's not a recipe book or an herbal book. It's truly a lifestyle book filled with also little stories of my upbringing and my life and why I created the recipes. So one of the recipes I have in there, they're called green water wellness shots. And even though this ingredient is something that is very well known in the quote superfood industry, I think now it's an ancestral food for me, and that's spirulina. And so I do talk about spirulina in the book as it relates to the conquistadors and just a little history for people, because I think it's important that when we're using our ancestral foods that some context. And so what I have for the recipe is about a good teaspoon. I don't really measure things very well for the sake of the cookbook or the lifestyle book. I had to, so it's probably about a teaspoon. It's the juice of one lemon and then whatever you choose. So maple syrup, honey, agave, whatever you like. So you're basically making like a very concentrated green lemonade. And I just drink that usually sometime before noon. And I really attest that to just, my skin. You're getting all of that amazing chlorophyll, and just for me personally, it's an ancestral food. So it's connecting me to those ancestors. It's easy to make. It's actually really tasty. For those that are a little shy about spirulina, can taste a little swampy. So it definitely cuts through that flavor.
That's fantastic. And again, that's the most important thing is the skin as this radiant organ. what you're taking in your body is reflecting certainly in your skin, your eyes, your hair, your nails, all of this stuff. So it's a very important aspect. Certainly hydration too, and there's some great raw living spirulina that's starting to pop up on the market now instead of the dried and kind of beat up stuff. I actually had an inventor reach out to me. He had a little spirulina pocket farm essentially that he was trying to pitch me, and I have to have a conversation with him because I would love to just, not necessarily as a business, but I would love to just make my own raw spirulina. If I get a hold of one, I'll try to get you one too.
If we get in a time machine, we can go back too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And it's an example too, is I don't want anyone to feel that my teachings or the book is like, I'm not trying to get us back to 1491. Like, I really want people to just embrace the wisdom ways, of my own culture, but also investigate their own for health and wellness.
Yeah, I mean, it's
pretty simple.
Yeah, it's common sense. It's nature's medicine. This interaction and this alchemy that we have with it, and it's clearly a freaking miracle that we're get to have these avatars and called Felicia, called Darin, and we interact with this world and we get to play with this stuff. So it's part of the experience, and they're our allies, and you just demonstrate that so well. And it's been just an epic to talk to you, and thank you for sharing your energy, your ancestors, and your knowledge with us today, because I think people are going to really dig what you said. And everyone, check out our book. It's just it's a labor of heart and love and knowledge and story. So yeah, thank you, Felicia. Much love.